she did lose her husband. She lost her kids. Like, I was just with her at the White House, and she's, you know, that's anyone. If that happened to your wife, my husband, like, it's devastating.
She lost her kids.
Done, are you?
We might have one more.
Okay.
I'm kind of torn. The only reason why I'm torn is because I had C-sections for both. So I'm like, how many more times does Charlie need to see my organ?
The most viral claim in this entire saga was never true to begin with, because right now, a bombshell accusation is collapsing in real time. According to growing pushback online, Anna Luna allegedly told audiences that Erika Kirk lost custody of her kids, a claim that's now being aggressively challenged with one simple fact. She never had custody to lose. No court ruling, no custody revocation, no legal loss, just a narrative that spread faster than anyone stopped to verify it. And that's what makes this moment dangerous. Because losing custody implies wrongdoing, neglect, or a court decision, all of which carry massive stigma. But according to people now dissecting the claim, there was never a custody order in Erika's name in the first place, meaning the story wasn't exaggerated, it was structurally false. So how did it go viral? Simple, it felt believable, it fit the outrage cycle. It aligned with earlier accusations, and it didn't get fact-checked before being repeated. Now critics are asking a brutal question. If Anna Luna was wrong about something this basic, what else was framed for shock instead of truth? This isn't just about one lie. It's about how quickly misinformation becomes character assassination, especially when kids are involved. And once a custody lie is out there, correcting it doesn't undo the damage. Because people remember the accusation, not the correction. So the real issue isn't whether Anna Luna misspoke. It's why no one slowed the story down before it became fact online. The custody claim didn't explode because it was proven. It exploded because it was easy to believe. That's the uncomfortable truth behind how the allegation tied to Erika Kirk gained traction, and why the statement attributed to Anna Luna became so damaging so quickly. According to online breakdowns and fact-check reactions, the claim that Erika lost custody began as a spoken assertion, not a documented finding. No court order was cited, no docket number was shared, no jurisdiction was named. Yet within hours, the phrase "lost custody" appeared in captions, thumbnails, and commentary as if it was settled fact. That's how misinformation usually starts, specific wording without sourcing. The phrase itself does the work. Lost custody implies a judge, a hearing, a failure. It compresses a complex legal reality into a moral verdict. And once that phrase circulates, it reframes everything that came before it, prior accusations, parenting disputes, even unrelated controversies, into evidence of a supposed outcome. What makes this case particularly striking is the counterclaim now gaining traction, that Erika never had custody to lose. In many co-parenting arrangements, one parent does not hold primary or sole custody at any point. Parenting time is shared, delegated, or governed by informal agreements. If that's the case here, as critics of the claim assert, then saying someone lost custody is not just misleading, it's categorically wrong. So why did it stick? First, authority by confidence. The claim was delivered assertively. Online audiences often equate confidence with credibility, especially when the speaker presents themselves as informed or insider-adjacent. When certainty replaces sourcing, listeners rarely pause to ask for proof. Second, amplification by repetition. Once the phrase was repeated by reaction channels and social posts, it took on the appearance of consensus. Each repetition removed it further from its origin, making it harder to trace and easier to accept. By the time viewers encountered it for the third or fourth time, it felt known. Third, alignment with an existing narrative. The custody claim landed amid heightened scrutiny of Erika's parenting and public behavior. When a new allegation fits a story people already believe might be true, it faces less resistance. This is confirmation bias at scale. People accept information that validates their expectations. Fourth, the speed advantage. Corrections move slower than accusations. Fact checks require specificity, documents, timelines, legal language. Accusations require only a sentence. By the time pushback emerged pointing out the absence of any custody ruling, the initial claim had already traveled far beyond the reach of the correction. There's also a structural problem at play. Legal language versus internet language. Custody online is treated as a moral label. In law, it's a defined status with variations: legal custody, physical custody, joint arrangements, parenting time. Collapsing those distinctions into a single phrase creates fertile ground for error. Critics now asking for accountability aren't arguing about parenting quality. they're arguing about basic accuracy. If no custody was ever awarded to Erika, then the premise of losing it is false. And false premises cause cascading harm. They intensify outrage, justify harassment, and permanently stain reputations, especially when children are involved. Why didn't this get challenged sooner? Because platform incentives reward speed over verification. Reaction content thrives on immediacy. Thumbnails favor absolutes. Corrections don't perform as well as accusations. Even well-meaning commentators can unknowingly launder misinformation by reacting to a claim instead of checking it. And once the story is framed as a loss, the burden shifts unfairly. The subject is expected to disprove a claim that was never proven. That's backwards, but it's common online. This is the core problem. Misinformation doesn't need proof, it needs momentum. And momentum was abundant here. In the next part, we'll examine what custody actually means legally, why so many people misuse the term, and how that misuse turns complex family arrangements into viral weapons. The phrase that did the most damage in this entire controversy wasn't dramatic language or emotional storytelling. It was a legal term used incorrectly, custody. Once that word entered the narrative, it carried assumptions the internet was never prepared to unpack. Here's the core problem: custody is not a single thing. In family law, custody is divided into categories, most commonly legal custody and physical custody, and those categories can be shared, split, or never formally assigned at all. Online discourse collapses all of that nuance into a single moral verdict: who has the kids? That simplification is how misinformation thrives. According to critics now pushing back on the claim attributed to Anna Luna, the statement that Erika Kirk lost custody fails at the most basic level. If a parent never held primary or sole custody, there is nothing to lose. At most, there are changes in schedules, arrangements, or responsibilities, often informal, often temporary, and often unrelated to court intervention. This distinction matters because losing custody implies a judicial action. It suggests hearings, findings, and a decision based on evidence. None of that has been shown publicly. Without a court order, the claim doesn't just overstate the situation, it misrepresents it. So why does the internet keep getting this wrong? First, language drift. Online creators often use custody as shorthand for who the kids are with right now. That's not how the law works. Children can stay with one parent for weeks due to work travel, school schedules, or mutual agreement without any custody change occurring. Temporary care does not equal legal transfer. Second, audience expectations. Viewers assume custody is a zero-sum game. One parent wins, the other loses. In reality, many families operate under joint custody or undefined arrangements where day-to-day decisions shift fluidly. Those setups don't produce clean narratives, so they get flattened into wins/lose framing. Third, confirmation bias. Once earlier accusations circulated about parenting or absence, the audience was primed to accept a custody loss as the logical next step. When a claim fits an existing storyline, it bypasses skepticism. The word custody then becomes proof rather than a term to be examined. Fourth, platform incentives. Lost custody is clickable. Never had custody is clarifying but less sensational. Thumbnails and captions reward certainty, not accuracy. As a result, precise language loses to viral phrasing even when it's wrong. The legal reality is less cinematic. A parent can share legal custody while not having physical custody at a given time, have physical custody without sole legal custody, have no formal custody designation at all, operate under private agreements without court involvement. None of these scenarios equal losing custody. What's more, custody arrangements are often sealed or confidential, especially to protect children. That means the public rarely has access to the documents needed to make definitive claims. In that vacuum, speculation masquerades as fact. This is where misinformation causes real harm. Accusing a parent of losing custody doesn't just criticize choices, it implies unfitness, it invites harassment, it stigmatizes children. And once that implication spreads, corrections struggle to catch up because they require explanation instead of outrage. Critics challenging the claim now argue that the correction, "she never had custody," exposes a deeper issue: how casually serious legal accusations are made online. Saying someone lost custody without evidence is not commentary. It's an assertion with consequences, and those consequences linger. Search results don't distinguish between claims and corrections. Casual viewers don't read footnotes. The accusation sticks while the clarification trails behind. This isn't about defending any individual's parenting. It's about insisting on basic accuracy when legal terms are used. If a commentator uses a legal phrase, they inherit a responsibility to use it correctly or clearly label it as speculation. Otherwise, the audience fills in the blanks with the harshest interpretation possible. In the next part, we'll examine how this misinformation spread so quickly, why reaction channels amplified it without verification, and what accountability looks like when a viral claim turns out to be wrong. By the time people started questioning the custody claim involving Erika Kirk, the damage was already done. The narrative had hardened, thumbnails had been made, clips had been monetized, and the phrase "lost custody" had traveled far beyond its original source. This is how misinformation usually works online. It doesn't spread because it's true, it spreads because it's useful. The first step in the spread was compression. A complicated, unverified statement was reduced to a single sentence that could fit cleanly into a caption. Erika Kirk lost custody of her kids. Short, definitive, easy to repeat. That sentence did not require proof to move, it required confidence. Once that sentence existed, reaction content took over. Reaction channels thrive on speed. Their value comes from being early, not from being precise. When a claim appears dramatic and already has momentum, the incentive is to respond immediately before someone else does. Verification slows that process. Skepticism lowers emotional intensity. Both are bad for performance. So the claim was repeated with qualifiers quietly removed. Allegedly became implied instead of spoken. According to X became it was revealed. Speculation became narration. Each repetition made the claim feel more real, not because of new evidence but because of volume. This is where profit enters the picture. Outrage performs. Parenting scandals perform especially well. Custody allegations combine moral judgment, emotional stakes, and family drama, the most clickable combination in online media. Even creators who personally doubted the claim benefited from discussing it. Criticism still drives views. Skepticism still drives engagement. In that sense, the truth was irrelevant to the system. Another accelerant was algorithmic reinforcement. Once viewers watched one video about the claim, platforms recommended more. Each recommendation confirmed to the viewer that this was a real story. The illusion of consensus formed without any verification step. Corrections didn't stand a chance. Why? Because corrections are structurally disadvantaged. They require explanation. They demand attention span. They often arrive after emotional investment has already been made. And they don't offer the same dopamine hit as outrage. A video titled "She Never Had Custody" does not compete with "She Lost Custody of Her Kids." One invites nuance, the other invites judgment. That's why fact checks rarely go viral unless they're framed as takedowns. And even then, they often amplify the original lie by repeating it. Another reason the correction struggled is identity entrenchment. Once people publicly reacted to the custody claim, commented, shared, took sides, accepting the correction would require admitting they were wrong. Online culture punishes that. It's easier to ignore the correction than to revise a stance. This is how false narratives survive even after being debunked. Who benefited from the spread? Content creators gained views, subscribers, and ad revenue. Platforms gained engagement and watch time. Audiences gained a clear villain and moral clarity. Who didn't benefit? The children involved, the accuracy of public discourse, the concept of accountability itself. Another troubling aspect is selective responsibility. When the claim spread, few asked for sources. When the correction appeared, many demanded proof. That asymmetry reveals how the burden of evidence flips once a narrative is established. Accusations get a free pass. Corrections face scrutiny. This is especially damaging when legal terms like custody are involved. Misusing them isn't just sloppy, it creates real-world consequences. Parents get harassed, children become collateral. Future employers, partners, and institutions see the accusation long after the correction is forgotten. And the original speaker often faces little consequence. If Anna Luna was wrong, the harm isn't undone by silence. But online systems rarely enforce retractions. There's no incentive to correct loudly what was said loudly because corrections don't pay. That's the core dysfunction. Misinformation spreads because it's profitable. Truth struggles because it's complex. This part of the story isn't about assigning malicious intent. Many people repeat false claims without realizing it, but intent doesn't change impact. Once a lie becomes content, it has a life of its own. And that's why this story matters beyond one person. It shows how easily serious accusations can be manufactured through repetition, how quickly legal language can be abused, and how corrections, no matter how accurate, are treated as optional. In the next part, we'll ask the final question: what accountability actually looks like when a viral claim turns out to be wrong, and whether the internet has any real mechanism for repair. Once a claim is proven wrong, or at least shown to be fundamentally flawed, the question everyone asks is simple: what happens next? In theory, accountability should follow. In practice, accountability online is rare, inconsistent, and often symbolic at best. That's the uncomfortable truth exposed by the custody narrative involving Erika Kirk and the claim attributed to Anna Luna. The internet does not have a built-in correction mechanism. There is no standard process for retractions, no obligation to issue follow-up videos with the same reach as the original claim. No penalty for being wrong, only a penalty for being late. By the time clarifications emerge, the attention economy has already moved on. That's why so many viral falsehoods end not with apologies but with silence. Silence is convenient. It avoids admitting error. It preserves credibility among audiences who never see the correction. And it works because most viewers don't track stories from beginning to end. They remember headlines, not updates. In this case, critics argue that once it became clear there was no custody to lose, the responsible move would have been a clear, prominent correction. Not a footnote, not a vague walkback. A direct acknowledgement that the original framing was wrong. But accountability online rarely looks like that. Instead, what often happens is reframing. The original claim quietly disappears. The focus shifts to a different criticism. The person who made the claim pivots to a new topic. The harm remains, but the conversation resets. This is where reputational damage becomes permanent. Search results don't show intent, they don't show corrections clearly. They show associations. Years from now, someone searching Erika's name may still see references to custody without context. That's the long tail of misinformation. It outlives outrage and ignores corrections. And what about consequences for the person who spread the claim? In most cases, there are none. Being wrong online doesn't disqualify you from having a platform. Sometimes it even increases visibility. Controversy creates name recognition. Name recognition creates reach. Reach becomes influence. The cycle rewards impact, not accuracy. This creates a perverse incentive structure. It's safer to accuse than to verify. Another reason accountability is rare is audience fragmentation. Corrections circulate in different bubbles than accusations. The people who believed the original claim may never encounter the debunking. Algorithms don't prioritize your misinformed content. They prioritize what keeps you engaged. So misinformation isn't corrected, it's compartmentalized. There's also the issue of moral exhaustion. Audiences burn out quickly. They move on to the next story, the next outrage, the next villain. By the time accountability could happen, attention has evaporated. And without attention, there's no pressure. This doesn't mean accountability is impossible. It means it requires intentional effort, and most platforms don't reward that effort. True accountability would look like a clear acknowledgement of error, a correction delivered with similar visibility, an explanation of how the mistake happened, a commitment to verify future claims. Those steps are rare because they don't perform well. They require humility. And humility doesn't trend, so who actually pays the price when a lie goes viral? Usually it's the person named in the claim. Their reputation absorbs the impact, their family absorbs the stress. Their children absorb the consequences they never chose. The people who spread the misinformation often move on untouched. This is the final and most important takeaway from this entire saga. The internet is very good at accusation and very bad at repair. Once a narrative hardens, correcting it becomes optional. Once an identity is questioned publicly, restoring it is slow and incomplete. And once children are pulled into the discourse, the damage is irreversible, even if the claim was wrong from the start. This story doesn't end with justice or resolution. It ends with a lesson. Accuracy matters more than speed. Legal language matters more than vibes. And silence after being wrong is not neutrality, it's avoidance. If accountability means anything online, it has to start with refusing to repeat claims we haven't verified, especially when those claims involve families and children. Because once a lie goes viral, the truth doesn't just need to be spoken. It needs to catch up. Do you think people with platforms should be held responsible for spreading false claims, even if they didn't intend harm? Should corrections be mandatory when misinformation goes viral? Or is this just the cost of consuming content in the attention economy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this if you believe truth shouldn't be optional once kids are involved, because clicks fade, but damage doesn't.